Alright, we're going to take a look at fraction equations. Don't get all intimidated. We're going to make them pretty simple. Alright, please jot this down. If you have a fraction next to a variable, multiply it by the reciprocal to cancel the numbers. And recall, reciprocal means when you just take the fraction and you flip it. An example would be 2/3 x equals -8. So we're multiplying by 2/3. If we multiply by the reciprocal, notice the 3 over the 3 will cancel because the common factor is 3. And then 2 and 2 will cancel because the common factor is 1. The common factor is 2, which makes each of those 1. And that's just 1x. And we're lazy, we don't write the 1x. So it would just be x. And then we do the same thing to the other side. So -8 times 3 over 2. And again, I'm going to cancel because what's the common factor with the top and bottom? Well, 2 will go into 2 once, 2 will go into -8 -4 times. And now we just multiply across. So -4 times 3 is -12. 1 times 1 is 1. I don't need to write that 1 on the bottom because anything divided by 1 is itself. So it's just -12. And then obviously we can check it. Alright, pause the video if you need more time. Alright, let's do a second example, and you can try this one on your own. Okay, write down for example 2, -3/4 x equals -12. And let's follow those same steps. Okay, I'm going to show you how to do that. We need to multiply by the reciprocal. So that's a negative fraction, so it doesn't matter where I put my negative sign. I'm going to leave it on the top. So I'm going to make it a -4 over 3. And then do the same thing to the other side. And my 4's are going to cancel and my 3's are going to cancel. So I'm just left with 1x. And then over here I'm going to use my shortcut. What's the common factor on the top and bottom? That's right, 3. 3 will go into 3 once, 3 will go into 12, or -12, -4 times. Then now I just multiply across. -4 times -4 is positive 16. 1 times 1 is 1. 16 over 1 is just 16, so I don't need to write that bottom part. So x is just 16. Hopefully you got that. Alright, let's move on. What if you have a whole bunch of fractions in an equation? Is there any way to bypass them? Well, I know some people have trouble with fractions because whoever made this shirt said 3 out of 2 people have trouble with fractions. Ho ho ho. If you don't get the joke, then you're one of those people who has trouble with fractions. Alright, let's talk about how to not use fractions or to get rid of the fraction to solve an equation. So here's a note to write down. To avoid dealing with fractions in an equation, multiply the entire equation by the least common multiple, or the LCM, of the denominators, or the bottom numbers. Alright, so to get rid of the fractions we can just multiply by the LCM. So I will still need to multiply with fractions, but I won't have to add and subtract with them. Alright, that could be helpful. Okay, let's do an example of that. Alright, let's say we had 2/5 x plus 3/10 equals 7. So if I don't want to deal with adding or subtracting those fractions, I can just look at my bottom numbers, the 5 and the 10, and find their least common multiples. Well, least common multiple is just when you take the numbers and write out like 5 times 1 is 5, 5 times 2 is 10, 5 times 3 is 15. Oh, but wait, I already have a common multiple. I didn't need to go to 20 and 30 because I already had a common multiple. So 10 is what I'm looking for. That's my least common multiple. So now I'm going to multiply that whole thing by 10. Really, that's 10 over 1, right? So use your rules when we're multiplying. We can cancel very easily here. So if the top and bottom numbers have a common factor, for instance, look at the 10 and look at the 5. As I do 10 times the 2/5 x. 5 will go into 5 once, 5 will go into 10 twice, and now I just multiply across. 2 times the 2 gives me 4. 1 times 1 is 1, so it's just 4x. Alright, and now I still need to do that to my next term and to my term after that. We're just distributing that 10 to all three numbers. So now let's do that with 10 times the 3/10. This is real easy. If the denominator and the numerator are the same, just think of it like this. 10 will go into 10 once, 10 will go into 10 once. 1 times 3 is 3, so that's just going to turn into 3. So really, you just lose the denominator, don't you? The 3/10 just becomes 3. And then 10 times 7 gives me 70. And now we're done with all of our fractions. Now it's just a two-step equation. So we draw our line down the middle, and the inverse of adding 3 is subtracting 3. We get 4x equals 67. And then our last step is the inverse of multiplying is dividing. So if I divide by 4, x would give me, that one didn't come out evenly, it would be 16 3/4. And that's because 4 times 16 gives me 64 with 3 left over out of 4. So that's why it's 3 out of 4. Alright, if you feel ready, you can try example 2. Alright, go ahead and try example 2. 1/4 x minus 1/3 equals 3/4. Remember, we want to multiply by the LCM. Alright, pause it if you haven't already, and we're going to go ahead and check it. So we're looking for the LCM of 3 and 4, our denominators. We get 3, 6, 9, 12, 4, 8, 12. So 12 is going to be the least common multiple. So I'm going to multiply that 12 to everything. And it's really a 12 over 1. So 4 and 12, do they have a common factor? Yep. 4 will go into 4 once, 4 will go into 12 3 times. Multiply across and we get 3 over 1x, or just 3x. Alright, now let's do the 12 times the negative 1/3. So 3 and 12 are top and bottom numbers. 3 will go into 3 once, 3 will go into 12 4 times. And multiply across, we get negative 4 over 1, which is just negative 4. And then for our last step, we do 12 times the 3/4. So a common factor is 4. 4 will go into 4 once. 4 will go into 12 3 times. And multiply across, 3 times 3 is 9 over 1, which is just 9. Did you get that far? Alright, now let's check it. It's a two-step equation. So we're going to do inverse operations. So the inverse of subtract 4 is add 4. And the 4's are going to cancel. And we get 3x, if I bring it down, gives me 13. And our last step, the inverse of multiplying, is dividing. So x would give me, 3 will go into 13 4 times, that gives us 12. We need one more to get to 13, so 1's our numerator, and it's still out of 3. So our denominator stays the same, so it's 4 and 1/3. Now if you're not one of those people, you can definitely still deal with the fractions and you don't need to worry about multiplying by the LCM. But for the rest of us out there, maybe try that shortcut that we just did today.